Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions, so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. You are all welcome to today's sitting. Can we go through the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 23rd June 2020? Page 159, 160, 161, 162, 163. I have examined the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 23rd June 2020, and approval is here granted. Any message from the governor?
Mr. Speaker, sir, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from
Any
Mr.
other
Governor.
announcements?
None, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Petitions?
None, sir.
Matter of urgent public importance? None. Personal explanations? None. Reports? None. our business of the day.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, the first item on the order paper for this session today is House of Assembly motion number 20, which prime mover is Honorable Mrs. Ali Macaulay, KM, from Amuwo, Odofin 1, supported by other honorable members ranging from Honorable Mrs. Miranda, ML, Honorable Mrs. Shangodara, MR, Honorable Oloworo, Honorable Yishao, GOR, Honorable Rauf, OA, Honorable Adewale, TA, Honorable Brahma, AO, Honorable Olawale, OS, Honorable Akonde, VO, Honorable Elliott, DO. With your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, may I humbly invite Honorable Moji Macaulay to move our motion titled Need to Curb in Incidents of Rape, Defilement of Minors, and Other Sexual Abuses in Lagos State. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, distinguished principal officers, and my amiable colleagues, honorable colleagues. With every sense of modesty and the spirit of humanity, I rise this afternoon to move the motion on the need to curb the incidences of rape, defilement of minors, and other sexual abuses in Lagos State. This House notes the alarming rate of domestic violence, rape, defilement of minor, and other sexual abuses, particularly in Lagos State. Further notes that some victims of sexual assault who are either children of less than 12 years, adult or aged female, are left with their fate in the society, while the culprits move freely without fear of being apprehended or persecuted. Is also aware of the provisions of extant laws, such as administration of criminal justice, repeal and reenactment laws, protection against domestic violence laws, child rights law, and Office of the Public Defender law, laws of Lagos State 2015 enacted to address incidents of rape and related cases within the state. Is not only disturbed by the catalog of sexual abuse cases reported daily in the media and the reactions of civil society organizations, but concerned by the ordeals of victims of rape and related cases, which includes emotional trauma, shame, sexually transmitted diseases, and committing suicide for fear of social stigmatization. Is further disturbed that the weak enforcement of related laws, lack of education on how victims of this heinous act can seek redress, mistreatment of rape cases, among others, created an environment where sexual abuse is perpetrated with impunity, and is also disturbed that only few offenders out of many reported rape cases were prosecuted and the culprits convicted. The number of rape cases determined in courts against the threatening reality is not enough. It's not enough signal to deter people from committing the heinous, atrocious act. This House resolves to call on Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, the Governor of Lagos State, to direct as follows. The Attorney General / Commissioner for Justice to ensure the preparation of any form of perpetration of any form of rape and defilement of minors are prosecuted speedily and in line with the extant laws of the state. The Commissioner for Women Affairs, Poverty Alleviation and Job Creation to ensure the rights of every victim of sexual assault are protected through the domestic violence agencies in the state. The Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, Lagos State, and other relevant agencies to adopt whistleblowing mechanisms in the fight against domestic violence, especially rape and defilement of minors. The Commissioner for Information and Strategy to intensify efforts on the campaign against sexual abuse and sensitize members of the public to report any form of sexual assault to the appropriate authority in the state, and the Commissioner of Police, Lagos State Command, to ensure that offenders of domestic violence, including rape and defilement, of minors are made to face the full weight of the law. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Honorable Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to speak. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, the obligation of the state to stamp out the menace of rape and domestic violence is an obligation owed erga omnes towards all. The crime of rape and associated offenses are considered malum inter, a universal wrong, regardless of the system of laws in effect. Consequently, all necessary steps by government to exterminate this menace will be lawful. Quod est necessarium est licitum. What is necessary is lawful. Mr. Speaker, I wish to say this, that gender-based violence occurs in many homes, families, schools, communities, and other places. I wish to also say this with regrets, that 6 out of every 10 children experience some form of violence. And according to the United Nations Children Education Fund, UNICEF, 1 in every 4 Nigerian girls will experience sexual violence before they turn 18. So sad. Furthermore, according to the United Nations Population Fund, UNFP, despite the progress made by the Nigerian government, approximately 80 million women and girls are still victims of gender-based violence. In a study recently conducted randomly in selected secondary schools around Lagos State, it showed that 28.8% of the 290 respondents had experienced gender-based violence of sexual assault, and none of them, Mr. Speaker, had made a formal report of the incident. Also, Mirabel Center, one of the organizations set up to support women and girls that have experienced gender-based violence, recorded 361 cases of sexual violence over 16 months, and 220 of whom were under the age of 18 years old. In addition, according to the World Bank, 25% of married women in Nigeria are subjected to intimate partner violence. Finally, there is need to strengthen legislative and institutional frameworks to protect gender-based violence victims exposed to domestic violence abuse and exploitation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and honorable colleagues, for your listening pleasure.
From all you have said, You have only narrated data, investigation, suffering. You've not been able to relate that to the situation you are trying to portray in your motion. They have only given us what they've been put together. They have done this, they have done that, fine. So such a data should be justified. We've talked about the number of 6 or 4 out of 10, this and that and that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was in the news recently about the rape cases of Miss Huwa, who was reading at the church, and of course another victim of rape in Ibadan, Miss Barakat, and so many other women who have been victims of this unfortunate incident. Mr. Speaker, may not want to bore you with all of these stories because we have one too many in the news recently, and that is why I thought it would be, benevolent to furnish this noble house with some of the statistics and the reports.
Honorable Desmond.
Thank you, my right honorable speaker. First, let me appreciate the prime mover of this motion because it's very apt and it's part of the ills of our society today, sir. Unfortunately, our country is going through a lot, and in the reports, it's been said that no fewer than 32 separate cases of defilement, rape, incest, sodomy has been reported to the Nigerian police in the last 6 months. And this is just the statistics as recorded, official report. We all know that a lot has been happening, and the issue of rape didn't start today. And the reason why it is very prevalent today is because people are becoming aware that this menace is killing people. A lot of clergymen have come out in the faces of social media and the media, basically, to condemn this act. And I'm very glad that the House is taking it very seriously. I want to believe, sir, that the laws we have not really been implemented. And one of the reasons, sir, is because a lot of us have decided, a lot of Nigerians have decided to settle these cases out of court. And that is one of the reasons why we've not seen the import of the penalties on people or on victims. I want to pray that this House will make it a major pointer that every case, every victim of rape and their families should not opt for out-of-court settlement. They should all go to court. We should see them, and the penalties should also be meted on those people who are culprits. I also want to state here, sir, that the definition of rape under Section 260 of the Criminal Law of Lagos State should also be amended to include both males and females, as we find out that they can also stand as perpetrators and also victims. These days, we don't only have females that are being raped, we also have men that are also going through the situation of rape. The Criminal Law of Lagos State, sir, I feel we should also look at it to also include the issue of incest, which we do not have right now. The domestication of the Violence Against Persons Act, which is a federal law. I think Lagos State should also find a stiffer, and also we should domesticate it so that we can also have the one from Lagos State. That being said, I'll allow my colleagues to contribute, and thank you very much, sir.
Honorable Low.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague, good afternoon. I want to commend the mover as well, because the issue that borders on rape is becoming pandemic. It's even more contagious than COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, recently we all appreciate the fact that the incidence of rape in Nigeria is getting to a level that nobody is ready to allow his daughter, including my daughter, to stay around any male in the child. If I'm not around, she has to lock herself in the room. It's that bad. But we must look at the real cause of rape, or the causes. From the parents, concealment of facts. The parents too must be criminalized. Some parents will collect bribe. Some parents will say because they are being threatened, they will not want to come out. But the victim of this incident will lose self-worth. Some of them even get depressed. Some of them will have withdrawal syndrome, while some will commit suicide. On the part of the law, we have plethora of laws, but are they effectively implemented? Endless judgments that will take many years. These are the reasons why many of these perpetrators will go scot-free. To the police, are they well trained on how to collect information, on how to collect facts? Some of them even will connive with the perpetrator by collecting bribe. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, I think the mover has talked about what the governor need to do. But to we ladies too, we need to dress very well. We must not be found in compromised areas, dark areas, run away from it. But the most important thing is that let there be a special tribunal that will try rape and domestic violence. Because if you take it to regular court, it takes a while. Let there be a dedicated court, like tribunal, that will try this and will be quick in the dispensation of justice. Speaker, finally, sir, I think it will not be out of place for Lagos State Electricity Board as well to go back and work on those dark areas and ensure that they are well lit, so that many of these children will not stray into the hands of all these perpetrators. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon.
Honorable Council.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This motion is not only apt, but very timely. I know that a few minutes is definitely not enough to speak about rape, but I'm particularly disturbed because it is only a man suffering from some form of mental illness that would go ahead and rape innocent women and most recently children. Over about 717 cases recently have been recorded between January and June to date. We've heard of cases lately about a man who raped a 3-month-old baby. This is totally unheard of and quite bizarre. It won't be out of place, however, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, to also, with the few submissions that have been made, call on the National Assembly to look into the review of, say, the criminal code, where the punishment and for the rape cases is encapsulated, with a view to combat this crime. Like Honorable Lowo said, this is becoming a major pandemic. We can look at a possibility, sir, of a merger between the penal code and the criminal code to fight this pandemic sexual violence. Because if you look at it in proper perspective, it is getting rather unbecoming. Finally, sir, Mr. Speaker, it would also be out of place to have the Lagos State Law Reform Commission, for example, come up with recommendations for more urgent, stringent penalties for the perpetrators of such menace. The implementation, as earlier mentioned by Honorable Elliott, is also very important. And I want to believe that with all this put in place, the rape cases will be a thing of the past and will be curbed. Naturally, you have killed the person who you have raped, and if it was left to me, I would say the person should be killed. But one way or the other, we have to look at ways to curb this menace. Thank you.
Honorable Miranda.
Because just last night I came across a story someone coming to a fridge in an apartment, I would the criminal, the fridge. While the mother of the to feed the fridge was busy inside the room. To show that even inside your own room, under your own roof, without so sir, I would also want opportunity to get parents to all have that, not only the female child, I mean, besides our male children as well, to tell them what they are to portray outside. Because most cases, it's when it's lack of home training is also part of the courses. We need to educate our male children as well. And it will also be a bad idea, sir. We should open an account in a bank. Once they punch in your name, let it be flagged. Once you want to use the government hospital, once they punch it in your name, they will all know that it is a crime. That once you are found guilty of this offense, you have nowhere to hide. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Togo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the act of rape is condemnable, generally. And thank God that it has been established that both female and male experience rape. But then one comes to think of it, that how can a man in his right sense involved in rape? Because today we have sex workers who will collect money from you to do whatever you want to do. But for you to now connive and plan to rape a minor or a lady is criminal. That means it's well planned and intended. Such people is expected to be dealt with. Mr. Speaker, inasmuch as I agree there was so much law that cater for this, but I equally want the situation where such people who have that plan and execute it must be made known to the whole world so as to stigmatize such person and to dehumanize that person. So if such thing is done, I believe people will be very careful. So if you rape and they caught you, your name may be in the National Book of Rape. So that when next you plan of doing anything, they will refer to it that you are a criminal, you are involved in rape activities. Secondly, sir, I feel we equally need to educate our people. Some people in those days, they feel there's nothing bad in it. Even your boyfriend and girlfriend. If your girlfriend said, no, I'm not ready for now, it is incumbent on you to leave her. At least that is when you give her dignity and you respect her. And that is when she can become a good wife. But if you force your way out, this is common. Even it's common among the youth. They may not be saying it out, sir. So we must encourage them to report. And even concealment, too, should be punished. All this, sir, I want us to look at it critically and let it be part of our law if we need to review it, so that the issue of rape, an incident of rape, will be reduced to the barest minimum in our society. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Victor Akode.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, my colleagues. Just as the country is moving from the Stone Age era into a computerized era, then we have a lot of problems at hand. And part of these problems come from the use of the iPhone, the Android, and the rest. A situation where pornography becomes the order of the day. Even the educated ones and the middle class people They want to buy their children Android phone. They want to buy their children laptops. They want to put Wi-Fi without us going back into moral instruction as we were taught when we were young. The issue of rape has become the order of the day. Back in 2017, I remember vividly there was a report that about 2,579 cases happened. And within April alone, Lagos State has 150 cases. That same year, about 559 cases was recorded in Lagos in the case of rape. Now, it's high time for us to look inward critically and see whether the laws that we have, whether they are obsolete, so that we can critically amend such laws to be in tandem with the modern rape cases. Our cases are peculiar, although we can borrow from the Western world. That takes me to some of those laws that we have. Section 260, we only have 10 paragraphs or 10 sections that make up the case of rape. 260 to 270, and that is under our laws of Lagos State. It is not enough. We need to bring in more. More, when I say more, I'm talking in terms of a situation where we look at consent. Where we say consent, for the mere fact that somebody gave you consent in the beginning does not mean that the consent is continuous for life. When you start and it says stop, we should stop. And that is why they said, real men don't rape. We obey the instruction. That the issue of consent goes a long way, and we need to look at it so that we can bring in again the issue of bodily assault. Bodily assault goes a long way. And when we talk about the aspect of penetration, they can use instruments, they can use anything, and a situation where somebody causes another person to commit rape, because it happens. We did not emphasize that, or that does not, our laws does not cure that. We need to look into it critically and come up with something that is better for us. That's my submission, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the prime mover of this motion too. Lots have been said in respect of the motion, but I want us to also look at this side of the motion too. Personally, for someone to commit rape, I believe is a capital offense, because the same thing, whosoever that wanted to go and rob is ready to kill. And with the statistics and the records shown so far, we discover that most of the time, the victims are always being killed. So we need to do something in respect of that. And when we were young, even up till now, most of the parents, they always engage the female children. They talk to them, they advise them about the sex, moral instruction, many, many things. At this, we always neglect our boys. So the parents, we need to do a lot of things in respect of that, because it starts from when they are still young. Most of the rapists, they are within the society. I believe we need a lot of engagement, not only with the ladies or with our guests. We need it with our boys. We need to talk to them. We need to let them know that committing a rape, that particular person, I don't even, like one of the honorable just said now, it seems that particular person is not even with his right of senses, because you have killed that person. Collateral damage is there. no matter what happened, the stigmatization, and that is some of the challenges we are facing in this part of the world. When you were raped, for you to come out and talk, thank God that people are now coming out to speak out. I want to thank our mothers for that. They are coming out to speak. I have lots of challenges when I was in my department before. When those people, there was a particular woman that said her brother-in-law raped her children, and they told her not to talk, that otherwise they are going to divorce the particular woman. One of my senior lecturers brought that lady to me, and the time we are using in court, it takes long time. The woman has been in charge of, has been in this case for over 5 or 6 years. It's getting frustrated on it. And the stigmatization that people will now be telling you that, look at that girl. Even, was it not because she's dressing, because the dress is not good, that was why the reason that she was getting raped. So I want us to look in that set too. And also, I want us to please do something, the Right Honorable Speaker, in respect of the time being used in court whenever you have a victim of rape. Thank you.
Honorable Ajani.
Thank you, the Right Honorable Speaker, my distinguished colleagues. I'd like to make one particular submission, sir, which is that while the numbers seem high, I'd like to submit that they're actually a lot higher. The reason being, sir, is because there's no current provision for counseling and sexual health treatment for these young ladies. Many people who are raped, many of the victims, they end up committing suicide, as the motion said earlier, and that's because there's no support for them after this incident. I believe we need to call on domestic and sexual violence response team to create a facility in which they're training our teachers to respond and see domestic and sexual violence when it's happening, and also our security agents. I watched a horror video on Instagram in which a mother was crying profusely because she reported a rape of her 5-year-old daughter to the police, but she was beaten and slapped at the police station, allegedly, according to her. But she had nobody to fight for her or her daughter. Whatever happens to that small child now, nobody will know except for the woman and her daughter. I just believe we need more in terms of support for the victims. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Bankende.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to appreciate the prime mover of this motion. I think what we are discussing today is not new. It has been with us since time immemorial. But what is baffling me in this present time is that if you take the statistic of the male and female, you will discover that we have more females than male. Then you now ask, why are we now raping when we have greater number of female than male? This is now meant for the psychologists to work on. 2, you will now ask, why do we have such a continuous moral decadence in our society, despite the number of places of worship we have? Then what are they preaching? And if you go on CNN, we hear all these the so-called priests having sexual assault with the minors. So yet, we will not for once have a case in the court that has been prosecuted. 2, you will now ask yourself, why do we now, many people go into this raping act? You will discover that it goes beyond the body laws for sexual feelings. Some are more into diabolic way. Last week, we read in a news, in the online news, that a lady went to go and visit the uncle. On her coming back, some people, just took the girl away. And on the phone, what they now tell the parent that we are not interested in your money, it is the virginity of the lady they needed. Up to now, the lady has not been released from the captive. So all this one, the security agency need to work more to really unveil the causes of this act, heinous act, against either male or female in our society. As we are battling with COVID-19, the issue of raping is getting more higher and higher. So our laws need to be strengthened, and the law enforcement too needs to be encouraged. The counselors need to be more active on their work, on their job, so that more people can be corrected from the act of raping. Thank you very much.
Honorable Fatai Moji.
Good afternoon, Right Honorable Speaker and my fellow colleagues. I appreciate the prime movers of this motion. First and foremost, we need to look at the role of the parents. Most parents pay more attention to their female children, teaching them what to do, how to address some issues, while neglecting the male child. I believe, as a society, if we are determined to reduce or eradicate rape in our society, we must teach our male children how to respect women. Sex education. Everybody has a role to play in educating and inform ourselves of proper conduct. The government should embark on an enlightenment campaign against rape in our society. And there is a need for us to establish guiding and counseling in our school. The government should make it mandatory for both private and public schools to have guiding and counseling, where the advice will be offered and support on sex-related issues. And also, there is also need for us to have sex educations in our curriculum as a subject, because most of the children spend more time in the school. Paragraph 3 of this motion talks about the law enacted by this House to address incidents of rape and related cases in the state. I believe we have a law in Lagos State, but we need to ask ourselves question: does executive and judiciary act according to this law? How many cases have been reported? And how many offenders have been prosecuted? I believe that the executive and judiciary have a lot to do. On aspect of our religion organizations also have a role to play as a moral compass of the society. They should stop preaching miracle. They should preach something that has to do, that have impact on the life of citizens. That is my submission, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, I think we are all speaking from the same angle, save for maybe one or two of us. Post-rape is all we have been hammering on. And I don't think we have to wait till someone has been raped before we take action. So in doing this, generally the idea behind the motion is to prevention of rape, either minor or adult, female or male. So that is an angle I think we should be speaking from. That is what we should be talking. What are the role of the parents, the moral, expectation, as rightly put by Honorable Fatai Moji, our religion institutions. So what are they preaching about moral consciousness? When you talk about morality, it starts from home. And why are we so particular about our survival than teaching or staying with our children? Most of the kids that have been defied or raped, it is not possible for the mother to be around, and somebody else will be doing that in the presence of the mother. So we should be looking at all these things. These are the things we need to start, giving very bright picture. So everybody will know what is responsible. You are talking about the law. The law has always been there. We are talking about prosecution, where the prosecution system has always been there. We can't suddenly now, we want to change the pattern of prosecution. The process, the court has its own procedure. It still has to follow the procedure. The prisons are congested already. Are we going to start building, creating new prisons? So let us look inward. What are the reasons? What are the things responsible? So we talk to that and think about prevention. We want to amend law, we will amend law. There's hardly any law that is not in our statute book. So we want to create more. We keep on creating. We keep on creating more. The police do this, the police should do that. How many of them do we have in our society? How many people are they going to? And how many of these cases are being reported to the police? So let's start thinking and talking about what to do to prevent it from happening. How can a child be left alone, a 3-year-old child, to the extent of being defiled, a 3 months, 6 months child, and all this? Where was the mother? What are the responsibility of the father as well? So we need to talk about this. And the children, most of them, they grow up among them. We need to talk. They should know where to go and what to do. The psychological aspect of it has to also be questioned. Those who are responsible. I don't believe a sane person of 40, 30-something will have thinking of defining a 5 years, a 3 years old. So these are the areas I think we should be talking about. All these we are talking, they are in the books already. We should not start acting as, like an NGO or CSO that are attracting attention. Our is to provide solutions. So we should look at the way and means to come up with ideas. It's not by taking cut, law. They've always been there. So let's see what are the things responsible for this action, and let us suggest what should be the solution. So that is the angle we should be going. Honorable Isha. Can you put up your light if you have? Put up your light, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon. My honorable colleagues, good afternoon. I want to thank the prime mover of this motion, Honorable Mrs. Ali Macaulay. It is very apt, very timely. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your guidance that we have several laws. We have statutes that deals with rape decisively, may need some tweaking, but they are there. Mr. Speaker, I agree with you totally. I would also want to add that punishment in itself can be a deterrent for people, because when people know that there's a consequence to what they are doing, they will think twice about it. Rape is an heinous crime. We can give all the excuse of why you got raped, but at the end of the day, you find out that it is the person that commits the rape that is at fault. If I don't dress well as a woman, a man can rape you. But what do you talk about a child? What kind of clothing do you expect a child to wear? If you say yes, then you change your mind and you say no, and the person still has a way with you, that means you have a relationship. What do you say about somebody that doesn't even know the person at all, and they grab the person and rape the person? So rape is something that must be tackled with all the fiber in our body to resist it. Mr. Speaker, I agree with you. Abroad now, there's a new normal when it comes to your child, especially your female child. Even your male child abroad. You don't put your child in the line of harm, as if I can put it that way. Every adult you see, especially we men, is a potential rapist at the back of every parent's mind. One of my honorable colleagues gave an example just now that an artisan was working in the house and was raping the child while the parent was outside. If you understand the new normal, you will not leave that child in that room with a stranger. The first thing is the way you grab your money is the same way you grab your child. Somebody is coming in, you hold your child as if your child is a handbag. That is what we are talking about here. We need to understand that our children, especially when it comes to statutory rape now, they cannot be left in that. The same way adults, fine, you know you have the right, it's your freedom. You curtail, you curb yourself. Every man you see as a woman is a potential rapist. You don't put yourself in harm's way so that tomorrow you won't say, oh, why didn't I? Of course, there's still going to be some very crazy ones that you have done everything right, yet they will still find their way to get there. Yes, the law will take care of that. Two things will happen under the law when we move into the law area. One, we need to strengthen our reporting. How do we strengthen the reporting? I believe, like one honorable member also mentioned there, the police cannot handle everything, and just like Mr. Speaker said, maybe our OPD, Office of Public Defender, should be strengthened also to take such reports and ensure that as fast as possible, the necessary data is gotten. Also on the part of prosecution, Honorable Lowe suggested a special court. Fine, maybe not a special court, but a timing. Because when someone is raped and the person reports the rape, if it's lasting 5 years, the person that is being accused is going to be walking free for the 5 years, probably taunting the person, and the person is stigmatized. So these matters have to be dealt with. But like Mr. Speaker said and directed us, which is very correct, all this already exists in our law. So what do we do to slow it down? The new normal, we must be more careful. But I also suggest that we find other arms of our, agencies of government that can aid in the prosecution of this crime. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished colleagues, I think we have to commend ourselves in this House of Assembly for our legislative foresight. Even before rape becomes this rampant, this House has amended the laws of Lagos State, the criminal law, to make rape a life sentence. I think the only penalty that is higher than life sentence is possibly the supreme, paying the supreme sacrifice, which is death penalty. And unfortunately, most executives in this country and outside this country are always careful not to append their approval for death sentence. So we have the highest penalty that anybody can give to any criminal offense in Lagos State. The question is, how many cases have attained that level of sanction to see that this person had been given life sentence? Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, there is no way we can divest what is happening from the way we handle rape cases. Because the purpose of penalty in any law is to deter others from doing it. But if the process is not carried to fruition, to attach that penalty, people will feel so relaxed. You can imagine a case in Kano in 2017, in Kaduna in 2017, where a man was arrested, tried in a magistrate court, and granted bail for raping a 5-year-old girl. He was arrested again for raping this same girl over and over again after he was released from the first, arrest. This shows that the man did not feel the pains of the law. So he has that impunity to still go through it again. Of course, when cases, people don't want to approach the court because of the time that cases spent in court. So they would prefer to hold it. I think the area we should be looking at now, Mr. Speaker, even if we say death penalty, if we say life imprisonment for the perpetrator, the accused person, that judgment is for the state. What is the judgment for the victim of rape? And these days, Administration of Criminal Justice is looking not only as, not looking at penalty for the state alone, but also for the accused, for the victim of the offense. So I think while we are looking at life imprisonment as penalty for the person, which is to the side of the state, we should also be looking at what is the remedy to the victim of the rape. Also, Mr. Speaker, I think our law should also have this shame aspect. You see, when you shame people, most times it's all deterrent. Rapists should be well celebrated by publicity. And that's why I think that if we say life imprisonment, somebody just cooled down somewhere, eating government food for life. I think the aspect should also be community sentencing. Part of the life sentence should be community sentencing, where that person will be publicly shamed. One of our colleagues mentioned it the other time. I think there should be shame where they will have a special uniform. They could write boldly on it, rapist, and they will serve community sentencing in our communities for some time and continue the rest of the sentencing. So, Mr. Speaker, I think shame aspect should be attributed to our penalty. There should be also remedy for the victim, and not just the penalty for the accused person for the state. Mr. Speaker, the motion also recommended speedy prosecution. Yes, Mr. Speaker, if there is speedy prosecution, it will facilitate quick judgment. And when there is quick judgment, others will be easily deterred. I think deterrent is what we need now. When you talk about parents, do we not have cases of a parent defiling his own daughter? It's very appalling. You talk about churches, you talk about religious bodies. There's a case of a pastor in Ibadan who raped a 5-year-old person, a 5-year-old girl, on the altar in the church, reported. So we have this thing going to almost all the facets, nowhere is spared. So what we need to do, Mr. Speaker, is to find a way of deterring those who have not done it. And that's the best way we can couch. We have a case in Kano where a man was defiling a 6-month-old baby, and the wife was the one holding the baby while the husband was doing it. When they arrested them, they said they had problem of childbearing, and they were told by someone that unless the husband make love, have sex with a child, they are likely to go barren for life. That's how they conspired to do that. So we have so many things that are really working to encourage rape these days. Mr. Speaker, and unless something is done and done fast, especially in the case of parents who rape and defile their daughters, it is appalling. They are people with valueless, souls. So I think, Mr. Speaker, perhaps we should look at the aspect of the growing tendencies of parents, a man, raping his daughter or stepdaughter. It's becoming so rampant these days, and something has to be done about that. I think that's the only aspect of the offense we need to look at and see what legislation could do about it. All other ones, I think they have been properly captured in our law. The issue of Lagos State criminal law, the issue of assault, sexual assault, and everything is contained in it. And I think our law is adequate. What is remaining is for the law to be properly executed. A colleague said it, Mr. Speaker, the other time. People don't want to approach the police station to report rape, because when you even go there, the way the police will interrogate will even be demeaning of the accused person. So they don't want to approach. So all of this, Mr. Speaker, we have laws that are adequate. All we need to do is executing the law to actually achieve that deterrent to people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lastly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One would have thought that since all my colleagues have spoken eloquently about this issue of rape, one shouldn't add a voice. But however, the rampancy of rape in the country is alarming and should unnerve all of us. There are, what is even rape? The criminal code, I think 357, 358 defines rape as having carnal knowledge of a woman without her consent. But let me say that that is pre-1921 definition from USA. Now, the rape in US is defined as the penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or the anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration of a sex organ without the consent of the victim. Because when you use carnal knowledge, it means that if you use fingering is not illegal, usage of sex toys and whatever is also not illegal because it's not captured only by this definition. That now means that those of us here and also other lawmakers, especially at the federal level, need to recalibrate and redefine what rape is, and also redefine what consent is. Also, there is need for education by all of us of either the male or the female child. Male, why rape is not nice. For the lady, how do you prevent it? What do you do? When you are faced, when you are cornered, what mode of defense do you have? All of this should be taught at the home, the school, and other outside. Also, I want to say that my colleagues also mentioned the reportage aspect, and also what is the need for the woman who will go and report rape. Aside from they will punish the victim, then nothing encourages the woman except because it will be stigmatized, because whenever he reports, she will be known. So I would urge this house to take a second look at the rape shield bill presented by one of us, Honorable Ishao. Because as at 2019, 2018, it's not as rampant as we have. Now it's very, very rampant, and it should worry all of us. So for me, we should also encourage victims to report and also make the reporting easy, and they should not be stigmatized. Also, judges also, and those who are in this act of prosecuting, and the judges also should be sensitized so that they could, because mostly judges has a lot of latitude, discretion when it comes to judgment. So they also should be sensitized on the need to apply the severest of punishment to all of these rapists. Or those of us there should recalibrate the offense and say if you go and defile a minor up from 1 month to 10 years is life imprisonment, so that we do not give all the latitude, as it were, to the judges. But all in all, I think it's something that it should be a continuous sensitization. We should look at it, help the victim, let it be a win-win for those who report, and also try to put them through the trauma so that they will be a better person, they will not feel stigmatized, and the severity of the punishment should be high. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Well, looking at the results, I think there are some that have to be dropped or made. The Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice to ensure perpetrators of any form of rape and defilement of minors are prosecuted. So the Office of Attorney General is not in charge, cannot dictate the speed at which a case is being dealt with. It's totally responsibility of the judiciary. So instead of that, we should call on judiciary, on judiciary as an institution, as an arm of government, to accelerate any case that has to do with rape, sexual harassment, defilements, and also the Commissioner for Women Affairs, Poverty Alleviation, Job Creation, to ensure rights of how is victims of sexual assault are protected. How? For me, I don't know if you want to explain this, or I don't know how. That is number 2. Commissioner for Women Affairs, Poverty Alleviation, and Job Creation to ensure that the rights of every victim of sexual assault are protected through the domestic violence agency in the state. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the issue of the Commissioner of the Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, the reason why we're looking in that direction is that she will be in a better position to ensure advocacy. And of course, on the part of the victims, they can actually have a unit that counsels these victims.
That is not protection. And couch here, you are talking about protection. So I think we should drop that leg. Well, WAPA can, take charge of advocacy, campaign, so job creation, and that of job creation. I don't think it has any duty that has to do with the issue at hand. Maybe job creation should be removed. Allow WAPA to carry out public campaign, advocacy, and the Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team in Lagos State and other relevant agencies to adopt whistleblowing mechanism in the fight against domestic violence, especially, yes. The Commissioner for Information and Strategy to intensify efforts of campaign against sexual abuses and sensitize members of the public to report any form of sexual assault to appropriate, yes. The Commissioner of Police Lagos State to ensure that offenders of domestic violence, including rape and defilement, then we can do with one. No, even I think number 3, number 4, and number 5, and to call on parents and guardians to be protective of their children, to act as a mother and education of youths, particularly female, on their relationship with opposite sex, particularly in contact, visits, mode of dressing. The penalty should be imposed on parents or guardians who are found to be negligent in their responsibility. If the parents and the guardians are caring enough, they should pay attention to their, like a case of something that happened in Portugal about 13 years ago. The investigation is still ongoing. The parents I won't say what abandoned, or what should I say, abandoned the child, 3-year-old child, in a bedroom in an hotel, and they were at the beach or club, not far away. But before their return, somebody has, boggled the room, took away the child, and up to this moment, the child has not been found. So there should be consequence for a guardian or parents who fail in his or her responsibility. So can you now take that again?
Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yeah, majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, sir. Prayer number 2, sir.
Yeah.
I am aware that WAPA has some agencies that are seriously into victims of sexual assault, and most of sexual assault. And I know that they handle many of sexual assault, especially within family, parent, father, and daughter, and the rest of it. And they cause some of the cases to go to court, even from WAPA themselves. So going to court, causing cases to go to court, I think is also like ensuring that the right of every victim of assault sexual assault is looked into and protected. They handle cases of assault very well.
If that is the case, if they have roles to play in this, and they should not be protecting the victim. So how do they protect? That is the question. We know what SWAPA does. So if they have activities which you are now telling us, and it's not mentioned in the support for the motion, so you are now telling us they have roles to play as well. So what are the roles? The roles will suggest what the motion will look like, or what we are calling them to do in the body of the motion. So we can't just say protect. So where we cannot define, we know where you're, in the management of.
Honorable Speaker, sir.
Yes.
I think what my honorable colleague here is trying to say is that there are certain instances, for instance, if it's domestic violence.
Can you remove that? You are alone. So.
If, for instance, the rape occurs within a family setting, the woman would not want to leave the house because she doesn't have opportunity of where to stay. So this, the body of government, the agency normally will give them some succor, take them in, counsel them, and manage them. The same way when it happens to anybody else around. So they manage them, try to counsel them, try to debrief them, try to ensure that for one reason or the other, they don't become suicidal.
Call on them to also play important role in rape cases of matter.
I think the word management will be fine, Honorable
manage
the rape victims, because it's the victims they are talking about now. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Honorable Macaulay, can you now take all this together again?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, I didn't capture all of this together, but I want to present the motion as amended by the right of the Speaker.
Who is seconding? Honorable Ajani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by Honorable Macaulay.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, next on the other paper is Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020, second reading. With your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, I wish to move that Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020 be read the second time. I so move.
Honorable Togo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by the majority.
All in favor say aye. Those against no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Right, Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, with your kind permission, I'll read for the second time a bill for a law to amend the Appropriation Law 2020 and to authorize the reordering of 457 billion 528,914,805 naira to 411 billion 608,499,249 naira for recurrent expenditure, and 711 billion 32,979,185 naira to 508 billion 860,843,967 naira for capital expenditure, while the budget size of 1,608,563,990 naira be revised to 920,469,343,216 naira for the year ending 31st December 2020. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Ishao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to speak with respect to the letter written, referring to the material read out by Mr. Clark. As we all know, the coronavirus, which is captioned COVID-19 pandemic, has also created an economic pandemic everywhere in the world. And it has become necessary for the state government to review its economic plan for the year and reorder its priorities. So Mr. Governor did send down a document requesting for that. As read out by Mr. Clark, the total budget size was brought down from 1.16856.562 trillion to 9206469, which is 21% drop, basically. The total revenue of a state was reduced by 24%. The recurrent expenditure was reduced by 10%, while the capital expenditure was reduced by 28%. Mr. Speaker, I would crave your indulgence that I take my seat and allow my colleagues to make their comments with respect to this document, and afterward I can also comment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just like what Honorable Ishao said, the COVID-19 had actually dealt a bad blow to the economies of the world, and Nigeria is not immune from the negative implication of that COVID. We all appreciate the fact that the current economic activities has nosedived, and obviously the revenue accrued to the state from all the agencies of government will not be realized, because all the postulations, empirical economic phenomenon had actually messed up. COVID-19 has messed it up. Hence, the need for us to review the budget, like the executive have actually done. Reviewing the budget by bringing down from an average of 1.1 trillion to 950 billion, we only show that the capacity to generate the estimated revenue cannot be realized, because the fact of the matter today is that even many companies have closed shops because they cannot cope. Many people have been laid off. So I still expect one or two things that we bother of stimulating the economy. We have not actually studied the book. If you go through it, I'd expect that we have something like a stabilization fund, or what I can call Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. And more money should as well be given to the medium and small entrepreneurs in order to stimulate local economies. We all even appreciate the fact that today there is limitation to what we can export. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, even the Nigerian budget was predicated at $57 per barrel. But today, thank God that even go up a bit from an average of $25 per barrel to an average of $45 per barrel now. That shows that all those economic tabulations, postulations are messed up. So there's a need for Lagos to look inward and see how they can review. Like the paper suggests, yes, money that will accrue to us will go down, and money we are going to spend on recurrent expenditure is supposed to take that, to follow that step as well. Then the one for the capital expenditure, there's a need for us, Mr. Speaker, to prioritize our priorities. I'd expected, maybe when we look into the book, more money should be given to transportation and more money to infrastructure, because we need to stimulate economic activities so that at the end of the year, we will not be panting, because what we have seen so far. And, Mr. Speaker, my colleague, Corona cannot go now. When we look at what is happening on a daily basis, it's increasing exponentially. We cannot curb it, and that means in the next 4 or 5 months, it will still be on. What we can do is just to manage it. Hence, we need to manage our economy. So, Mr. Speaker, I think what they have done is good, but with your concurrence and my colleagues, let's look into the books and look into the bits to see whether it meets our aspiration or not. And if it doesn't, we will be able to do the needful at ensuring that we're on the same page. Thank you, sir.
Before you take your seat, you just say what they have done is right. But there is consideration, probably there will be lockdown, another phase of lockdown. So before the next phase of lockdown, because the effect and the victim of the COVID-19, the numbers are increasing. So haven't adjusted the budgets. Then do you think there won't be any reason for us again to come back after the series of lockdowns to now look at what we have amended, or we are going to amend or reduce the budget to now?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the notes I jotted down, but it skipped me. Mr. Speaker, when we are jogging the figures, obviously we are going to give more money to health. Because we check where we have surplus, we give money to health so that if peradventure COVID is with us for the next 6 months, they'll be able to use the money. Then again, I talked about stabilization fund, or what I call contingency fund. We look at that again, despite the fact that they are talking about reducing the size of the budget. There are some elements of the budget that we cannot reduce just like that. We have to consider it that that money is probably we increase it to be able to nip in the bud the pandemics until we manage till the end of the year. But money on health bill and on stabilization has to be viewed, and we need to protect that. So it's not reviewed downward.
Honorable Tobo.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, like I want to appreciate the executive at least for coming up with the review of the budget. We're not quite sure that this COVID-19 has affected the whole world. Revenue generation has dropped drastically. Even grant from the federal government is not coming in. Revenue from crude oil has dropped, and our expenditure keep on increasing. So we need to do a kind of a realistic budget where we will not be banking on the initial budget. So I believe that what the executive wants us to do is to review the budget to meet the present reality. And the fact still remains that, like you have rightly opined, sir, COVID-19 is still ongoing. And there is tendency for them to still bring this budget to us to review. And if you look at what we're experiencing, it was unbudgeted for the COVID-19. So most of our funds have been diverted to issue of secure health. And if you look at the infrastructure too, there is major infrastructure decadence in Lagos State now. The roads have become unpassable, are becoming bad. So we still need to look at it critically to ensure that all those items that are so important are considered in this budget review, and making sure that those that will impact majorly positively on the life of the people were given utmost priority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Jude.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, my Speaker and my colleagues. I also want to support what my earlier colleagues have said. With the line of the executive giving us, approaching us for us to review the budget downward. Sir, it is key because all the parameters that we use in preparing the initial budget have all failures due to COVID-19. Pandemic, everybody is suffering of. The truth is that nobody planned for it, but it has happened, and we don't know when it will end. You asked a question, my right honorable Speaker. You said, what will happen after this review? Well, for me, the truth is, when we review it, and probably the need also comes again for us to review, they review it again. Because the issue is that we are in the period we say new normal. It's a new normal. That's something that's beyond all of us. However, when you look at what the amount of money they are removing is still less than 250 billion, which for me is a little bit still reasonable. However, the aspect of how do we make this money is a key thing. Crude oil is dwindling. Like Honorable Lowe said before, it was projected at $57 per barrel. It came to, today, it's still less than 40. So it's a big challenge. Companies are closing down. People are losing their jobs. Internally, we believe Lagos State have been doing well internally by generating internal revenue. But sir, the challenge there is that a man that does not work or doesn't earn salary, can he pay tax? A company that is not operating, what happens? Can he pay tax? So it is difficult. So it's expected. However, like we said, by the time we look at the book side, we'll even know which sectors or ministries that need more funds. However, like we know, budget is just a prediction or a statement of what we have not yet realized, hoping to realize it. So I want to commend the executive for the proposal for this review. I'm hoping that our dear colleagues as well, when the time comes, will do the necessary thing that is expected from us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. After now, coming again to look into the budget again and trying to reduce it again will be a misnomer. So it is imperative that we do the needful. Judging from the IGR, because the IGR is used to forecast the budget. And one can say that the IGR comes to its peak in the second quarter and the third quarter of the year. And as we can see, the second quarter is already gone. We are approaching the third quarter. The second quarter is the beginning of the pandemic. The third quarter, we are still in pandemic. It is imperative that we have to look inward. If whatever we need to do now, it is good for us to do. Not after doing this, we now come back and say we want to redirect the budget. But it is good. It is a good radiance in the right direction for the executive to have come and we have looked into the budget and the budget has changed its status. But that as it may, I will only say that once the recurring expenditure cannot be met because there is nothing much the executive are doing, and the capital projects or the capital expenditure is lower for now, then this figure that was brought is still in tandem with the situation of things. Thank you, sir.
The Appropriation Amendment Bill 2020 is hereby committed to Joint Committee of Economic Planning and Finance to report back on Thursday. Majority Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, we have come to the end of the session for today. And with the approval of the Right Honorable Speaker, I move that this House adjourns till Tuesday, the 30th day of this month at 10 o'clock. I so move.
I rise to second the motion as moved.